The being able to celebrate in the locker room after those guys, I'll take that. Now I just got to do everything I can to be able to do that again. Favorite part of the week, and then after that is talking to you guys for sure. Yeah.
We can celebrate a little more.
Yeah. No, it's all right. It's all right. We need some energy right now. Need some energy. That's for sure.
I think it was Dion. I saw him on a interview last night. He said something about Joe Brady told us all week, don't worry about the scoreboard. You just make sure you just keep playing football. Make sure you just keep going. Can you take us into the mentality, like what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Don't worry about the score. Just go out there and keep playing every play.
Yeah, I think you can get look. There's a time and a place where the score does matter, right? And it's like, hey, we got 2 possessions left and we're down 2 scores, and but outside of that, the NFL is such a unique game that you can be playing either so well or you could be. It's just not be your kind of day, but you're going to have a chance at the end of the game. Somehow it just works that way. And when you don't look at the scoreboard and just focus on the next play, the next drive, the next opportunity, usually, good things happen. And especially when you go against a good outfit and the team that we faced, like they're going to score points, right? And sometimes you can get caught up. I'm sure teams do that. The same thing playing Josh Allen, right? You play Josh Allen, you're like, oh man, they scored. We got to hurry up and score. And it's just like, then you start making decisions and you start playing outside of yourself. And so when I say don't look at the scoreboard, it's like, hey, let's just focus on ourselves, just play the next play, and good things are naturally going to happen. And look, last night I didn't think that was exactly how it was going to go, but them focusing and then not blinking, just knowing that as long as we got 17 and the guys in that locker room, as long as there's time on the clock, we got a chance, and we proved it last night. And you're always trying to learn a lot about your team early in the season, just throughout the season, and we found a way to win. And early, I thought that was important, and we didn't look at the scoreboard, didn't blink, and found a way to go 1-0.
Joe, through the first 3 quarters, Keon and Josh Palmer, I think, combined for 3 catches. You look at the end of the game, they have 13 catches, about 170 yards. What changed for those 2 guys in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think naturally early in the season, I think it's both sides, offense and defense, trying to get a feel of the what's new in the next season, right? Look, we just played an outstanding team, outstanding defense. They were very different than the last time we played them. And sometimes you can get caught up trying to figure that out. And when you're not in a rhythm, we had a couple 3-and-outs that it's hard to get back in a rhythm of kind of seeing, allowing us to be able to, hey, spread the ball around, get some touches. In the second half, you start to get in a feel of exact kind of how the game's being played. And you're kind of have to kind of throw the ball at that point. We were kind of in a 2-minute drill basically the whole second half. Well, naturally, you're going to spread it around and, give those guys opportunities to be able to throw it. Would have loved to be able to obviously get people more involved in the first half. Those 2 3-and-outs were something that was big that kept me up last night. But, look, I was the offseason, those guys kind of working. It was good in the second half to see those guys make the big plays, especially at the end. We wanted the ball with the game on the line, and seeing Keon and Josh kind of make those plays at the end, those were huge.
Can you take us through the play call on the first 2-point conversion? You get the penalty and then it's down to a yard, Josh.
Yep.
For Keon, just kind of what was going on that call?
I think I think they had 12 guys on the field, so we're on the sideline. We moved to the 1-yard line, and hey, we're going for 2, and it was a pure progression play, and Josh is late in the progression is Keon with it, and we got to make sure that we're saving more room at the back of the end zone so that we're not there's not an ability to get pushed out, we look our 2-point plays weren't good enough last night, and those are the things that you can win and lose ball games with. We learned that in the AFC Championship game. So we got to do a better job when we get those opportunities. Whether we got to go 1 yard or whether we got to go 2, we got to do a better job.
What's your philosophy like on planning those plays? Like, is it just it's different than the rest of the games? Like, how do you kind of start it? Like, here's what's going to make sense on a 2-point conversion, given where it is on the field.
Yeah, I think there's every defense is different, and also what you're doing it's different than just a 3rd and goal at the 2-yard line type of play, different than a 4th and goal at the 2-yard line play, or because there's really there could be consequences in terms of you pick the ball off, they can score, but sometimes for the defense there's not a consequence with it, and so it's a unique thing that when you're game planning, you might have a feel of they might have had 2 in the last 3 years. and so you're just trying to get a feel of what the coverages they might do in those situations. A lot of times, as always, if you're passing the ball down there, there's going to be scrambles and 2-point plays. But look, it's something that we obviously have to evaluate because, anytime coach is like, hey, put the offense back on the field, we got to be ready to go score. And so didn't like how we executed in those situations last night.
Jackson Haas catches that pass. He's known as the blocking tight end. We all know he can catch a little bit. But is that something that you kind of have in deep down the play sheet that you can turn to at some point if you need it? Or is that something that develops throughout the game where maybe you see that might be an opportunity for us to do something like that?
Yeah, well, really the way the second half was kind of going, we were living in 11 personnel a lot. We had an opportunity, we came out in the first drive in the second half, we were able to get some 12 personnel going and getting the run going. We were able to get some 22 in there, but then once you're kind of playing catch up a little bit, you're kind of in 11 personnel kind of throwing. Well, defense did a great job and got the turnover, and we had an opportunity where now we're just playing normal offense. So we had an opportunity to be able to get back in 13 personnel and not sit there and say, hey, we have to make it a no huddle 11 personnel. It seemed very similar to the Rams game last year where it was just like, hey, regardless of anything, we're going to stay at the same pace regardless if it's a 2-point game or whether it's a we're just going to stay in that no huddle kind of mindset. But that was kind of give us a breather of, hey, let's get into 13 and see if we can take advantage of a seam throw. And Josh was just on target. It was an incredible throw. And Hawsey to be able to make his first NFL catch, caught it like 3 times, but found a way to get it done.
Frantic as it gets in those situations. I mean, to put it in layman's terms, when you're up there and things are just going, it's almost like, I don't know, like a triage in an emergency room in some ways. How do you balance staying calm versus knowing that you might be throwing the kitchen sink at everything in that sense? I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself right, but is there a wanting to throw the kitchen sink out there just to see what sticks?
Are you saying towards you're saying in the end of the game, like the crazy situational 2-minute situation? You're talking like early in the game type of mindset.
I'm talking when you're down by 15 points and there's nothing left to lose.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a lot to lose. You can lose it on, if I think in those moments is when people try to play outside of the system. And in those moments, we don't need anybody to do anything extraordinary. We just need to make the ordinary plays. And I thought what Josh did last night and those guys, of being able to take 5-yard completions, then take the 12-yard completions, then take a double move and potentially take a shot, but find your way to go down the field and score 1 touchdown. You can't get 2 touchdowns until you get the first one. And I think oftentimes people play with the mindset of like, all right, I got to force it, and I got to make a decision now. Well, we're going to get a couple. There's more drives left. There's a time and a place where it's like, hey, we got 1 drive left. We got to go 40 yards, and we're going to have to take a shot. But in those situations, we weren't there yet. And, the growth and he was so calm and just being able to just command out there that, there wasn't a person on our sidelines or in our box that didn't have any faith that as long as 17's out there, good things are going to happen.
I like that answer because it did answer my question in many ways. But as a follow-up, how much is that a learned thing? I mean, you just can't go out there like day one and do that. But how much do you get the experience from what happened against the Rams, against the Lions?
Yeah.
And know how much is that a learned thing?
Well, yeah, it's I think, when you say it's like a triage, like for a play caller, it's not like sometimes I watch a game on television. I'm like, damn, what would I call in those situations? Like this is hectic. But when you're in those moments, it's as calm as can be because this is what we do. It's nowhere near a doctor, but like a doctor, an emergency room doctor, we're sitting there thinking that's crazy. Nowhere near what I do is anything near that. But like this is what I prepare, and this is what I wouldn't be able to get a deadline, paper in or anything like that, but you guys don't blink and can do that. So, but yeah, in those moments though, you're going to rely on your guys. You're going to trust your guys. You hope that the play calls that we're calling, they're understanding the intent and the why, what we're calling it. Look, Coach McDermott does a great job. We work these situations on a regular basis. So end to half, end to game. That's what you kind of live for. So in those moments right there, it was down by 2 minutes, it was your love and life right there.
You talked about Jackson a few minutes ago. Alec only played 3 snaps in this game. Is there anything that goes into this offseason? You bring Jackson in, and obviously Alec played that role last year, different roles.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for Alec long term in terms of the season and getting him involved in some way?
Yeah, I think it's a game-to-game thing. I think a lot of first half wasn't where we wanted it to be. I think we had 5 drives. You take away that last field goal drive, we had 4 drives. We had the long drive to start, and then we have a couple 3 and outs. So it's hard to get in the rhythm, hard to get utilizing your different personnel groupings and be able to kind of see how the game's being played and get more people involved. And I think once you do that, then you see Alec Anderson on the field a little more. We were living a little in 2 off-schedule, second and long situations, early, or, we're second and shorts and we're not converting to get the first down, to then be able to get in the rhythm, to then be able to utilize, different personnel groupings. And so I think the Alex situation is, one, it's a week-to-week thing, but I'd love for him to be able to play more than he played. Some of that was just a product of kind of where the game kind of was in the second half, and we weren't in a rhythm early.
Joe, how can momentum from one week carry into the next week in terms of the energy that you're bringing into the next game?
Yeah, maybe I'm maybe a little different with this, but I don't believe you stack wins in the NFL. The team we're playing this week does not care about what happened to us yesterday, but we can, in those moments, we can fall back on what we experienced yesterday. There shouldn't be a game we play this year that a player doesn't believe we have a chance to win. So I believe in that. It's hard to win in the NFL, and so winning again, you don't get a lot of sleep last night, but I'm sure the guys that they felt a little better waking up with it. So I think from that sense, you have a little more energy going into this week. But I like to think if our process is where it needs to be, we're going to start over. We were just as hard watching the tape as we would win or loss. We're going to come in Wednesday ready to go with the same approach. And we got a huge division game this week. And so obviously it was important to win yesterday, but I want our guys to know, like, hey, we got to start over. And I hope guys kind of understand how important the process is for that.
Was there anything about what Josh did in the fourth quarter specifically that stood out to you? He set a bunch of records, obviously he scored a lot of points. Was there anything that he was doing that stands out to you the most?
I don't know, how long is this press conference? I mean, it was, the quarterback play in the second half, I'd say some of the alerts and the checks and the ball placement, you're calling it sometimes. You don't really get to appreciate it while you're calling it because you're having to call the next play. But a fan of football and being able to see what he can do is, there's a reason he's the MVP. And the city of Buffalo getting to stay and watch him play for this many years, it's a treat. And that's where the game of football is. We got all these there's 2 great quarterbacks playing yesterday, and the game of football is in a great place. But, seeing what Josh was able to get to and seeing the coverages and diagnosing it and knowing where the answers and where to go with the clock going down, it was at all-time high, and that's what happened, and the game slows down for him at this point. He was able to see kind of how the game was being played all game, and all right, I seen this look. All right, time to get to this, and but yeah, I can be on and on. There was a lot of moments. A lot of wows, that's for sure.
In those moments, like we talked about, like the 2-minute drills and like being prepared and his calmness in those moments. Have you seen him like improve in any areas over the years in those situations, like whether it's his calmness or like how he's reading the situation? Like, has that changed over time, or do you feel like since you've worked with him, he's kind of?
Yeah, I think it was unique because I was on the sideline with him. Like, he was always calm. I'll never forget the Minnesota Vikings game where we fumbled backed up. The game was over, and the feeling of, oh my gosh, did I just potentially lost this the game in that situation. And I looked at him, and he was as calm as can be and just let us right down the field to tie it to go into overtime. That's who he is. He is you can't play this game without riding the highs and lows, and he's in those situations. Like, that's what quarterbacks kind of live for. The great quarterbacks, to get the ball in a 2 minutes to go win the football game, like, that's what they want. And you got to love that. And just seeing him be able to execute and not flinch in those situations. It's, as you guys know, I can talk on and on. I love that guy so much, but it was definitely a treat for everybody that was there last night.
I asked Sean about the communication between him and Chris Tabor and kicking aspect of it. How about you and Josh, communication on the last drive, the last minute or so, timeouts, where to place the ball, timing on the clock? Can you guys take us into that communication you have with him?
Yeah. Fortunately, like I said, we do this so much that we know the range that we have to get to. he knows the type of plays that we're thinking, as we're going into the drive. Obviously did a great job just finding some easy completions. The biggest thing in those 2-minute situations is just getting the drive started, right? Did a good job finding the first completion to Khalil and then Keon, and then he's using his legs. Once you get into field goal range, right? So now we made the great throw. We had the false start. He made the great throw to Josh Palmer. That was an absolute dime. Now we're right on, I'm learning it's a new kicker. Obviously he's been a great kicker for so long, but in those moments, boom, it happens fast, and just knowing where the range is. Do we have to get closer? Are we in range? He's kicked like 80-yard field goals in the NFL at times in Denver. So we have such an experienced staff with Tabes, and coach, that it was very calm on the headsets. Josh obviously made a great throw, to Keon, on that last play, and then it was just a matter of, hey, are they going to use timeouts? Are they going to try to? There was a lot of chess match in that end of what are they going to do in those situations? Where do we want the ball? Do we want the ball in the left hash? Do we want it in the middle? How much time do we need to be able to run out on the field? So there's a lot that goes on, but again, these are the things that we work. In the beginning of practices, sometimes that you can go out at practice and at training camp, and it just looks like we're just going through the motions, but there's so much intent behind it, and it's really cool to see it kind of come into action.
Along the same lines, talk about the calmness it takes to set up the game-winning field goal. Can you take us through when you see the field goal come in, through you and your staff, the guys are up in the booth, like the celebration that kind of ensues from your angle before you get down to the locker room? Like, how do you guys enjoy and celebrate that moment?
I take a sigh of relief. There's a lot of plays last night, a lot of highs and lows. There's an excitement. You can obviously hear it in my voice, like you guys learned last week with me. I'm very excited during the presser, but no, it's exciting. And then you get to the locker room, and man, just you guys know how much I love my guys, and being able to get in the locker room, be able to celebrate with them, and just seeing the energy, seeing the team, the offense and the defense celebrating together. Like that's why we do what we do. And so in those moments, look, it's the coaching. It takes a lot out of you. You're mentally on for 4 hours just trying to. It's the chess match, and again, they're great coaches on the other side of the ball. And I'm just fortunate I got Josh Allen to a lot of times like last night just bails you out, right? But you find a way to get the win, and nothing else matters at the end of the season. We don't remember the scores of these games. You just remember the wins and the losses. And I'm glad we find a way to pull out of that one.
When did you take those 2 or 3 and outs? You said that you had trouble sleeping because of them.
Where do I start, right? Well, I think the first one, we had without getting into calls, Josh got into we give Josh a lot of our calls have 2 plays, right? So Josh got into a second play call, and they blitzed the corner on the second one, so we're kind of behind the chains. And then, we didn't execute well on our tempo third down, and next thing we're run off the field, and that's never what you want. You get in a rhythm there, you can be able to take a shot. You're able to kind of go with it. The next one, we obviously drop the screen, to get going. We find an easy completion on the under. We're living in a 3rd and long, and again, I'm never going to question Josh Allen getting to alert. We were one of the best teams in the league at receiver screens last year. They didn't work last night, but we're not going to stop that moving forward. Depending on the situations and whatnot, they're not on every play call. But if he wants to get to it, I'm going to trust him, just like some of the get-tos he got to in the 4th quarter. We have to do a better job executing in those situations. But the biggest thing is I got to get our offense in a better rhythm, and in order to do that, I got to get Josh in a rhythm, early with that. And so every game we take some learning from, and it's never going to be perfect. Sometimes we just got to find a way to get a first down, right? Like in the first half, when we got a first down, we found a way to get points. When we didn't, generally speaking, last year we were pretty good at not getting 3 and outs. But when you go 3 and outs, you're putting the ball right back to the defense. You're not flipping the field. You're not helping field position. And the longer we're on the field, usually good things happen. And so without getting the detailed in the calls, and I obviously got to do a much better job. I wasn't good enough last night.
Joe, you mentioned the wide receiver screens there. Were there times, especially maybe early in the game, I don't know if conservative is the right word, but were there times when watching the game back you would have maybe preferred a bit more of an aggressive approach in pushing the ball down the field?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, sometimes it's hindsight, right? Sometimes I try not to try not to judge always my decisions based off the results. Some of it is, hey man, like that one, I wanted to get Key on a touch, just get him an easy completion, right? We had, at that point we had gone 2 drives, hadn't get him a touch, and just tried to get the drive started with, again, a receiver screen that we felt, again, they had a little different empty check than they had shown, we dropped it, didn't even get it going. So I don't think it was necessarily a conservative approach. They didn't work. And so I think naturally when they don't work, it looks like we're not trying to push the ball. The original play calls, were potentially runs that were going to be pushing it down the field, and we felt like it was a favorable look to be able to, especially on the third down, to get to the screen to Dalt, and they didn't work. But some of it also was getting a feel of, again, I got to be better last night, but some of it was getting a feel of the way that the defense was being played too. It was. When you had, like I said, when you had the 3 and out in the second one after the first drive, you're still trying to get a feel how the game's being played. And that's where I got to do a good job of trying to figure out the adjustments and kind of roll. When you follow up a 3 and out with a 3 and out, you're kind of still don't have a good feeling of how the game's being played. And so, conservative or not, we got to find a way to get a first down there. And once you get the first down, I can get a better feel of how the game's going. And at the end of the day, I need to keep the ball. I don't need to keep the ball in Josh's hands, but when the ball is in Josh's hands, when it's not just 2 screens and a couple runs from that standpoint, it makes it a little hard for him to get in a rhythm, if that makes sense.